Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Equation, Stories of Women in STEM, a podcast where we shine a spotlight on incredible women in STEM and explore their journeys, challenges, and triumphs. I'm Ashwika Bansal, a high school student with a passion for all things STEM related, and today I'm joined by Miss Priya, a machine learning engineer and a data scientist. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to host you in my podcast, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So starting off, could I ask you what your favorite hobby as a child was that might have helped like increase your passion for choosing your major in STEM?
Oh, interesting. I think that hobby for healthy competition. So as a kid, I used to go out in the street and I used to play with everybody like a lot, and that helped me understand. Like we used to have these little competitions as a kid, and I used to host a lot of them. So I think it kind of instilled a sense of collaboration and also healthy competition, which has been really helping me because I've joined this company, and this is like my first real time, like first job. So it helps me to navigate with people, and it also helps with the collaboration when we're especially writing code and everything in production. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Could you please introduce yourself to the audience and share a little bit about your journey into STEM and what
Mm-hmm.
sparked your interest for machine learning and data science in specific?
I would love to. So, hi everyone. I am Shri Priya. Uh, just call me Priya. And I am originally from India. I came to Japan about 3 years ago. So, I initially studied in India, did my bachelor's in computer science, and then I came to Japan, did my master's in information sciences. And right now, I am like working at a startup, like Ashwika said. I'm working as a machine learning intern. That's been my journey so far. Talking about what sparked my interest, I was recalling the events like that led to me coming to Japan and finally pursuing information sciences. So I think in the beginning it was very traditional route. So if you're in India and then you're good at studies, you either become a doctor or an engineer, right? So that was the same for me. So when I went to the university, I had no idea what computer science was. I had no experience with coding. But in 2018, I got an opportunity to intern at IIT BHU in Varanasi, which is one of the top institutes in India, as you might know. So there I learned about machine learning, and the
Mm.
most fascinating thing was like there's so much data in the world. So I learned like you could actually use that data to gain insights. And I thought that was really fascinating, almost like a black box, as you might call it. So that is how it started. Then I learned machine learning on my own. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, that's an amazing and inspiring story, actually, considering not a lot of people, I think even my age, know what to do or like where to start.
Yeah.
I think internships specifically are a great way for students and like anyone basically who's not sure about what they want to follow in the future. And considering STEM has so many different branches and within itself, like engineering, like you mentioned, there's so many different types internships or like summer programs actually do help quite a lot to like figure out your passions. And yeah, that's quite interesting how one internship can lead you to decide what you want to do in the future.
Yeah, I think internships are a great way to tell you what not to do or what to do. So, like, if you don't know what you like, you can always know what you don't like. And then that kind of narrows down your choices. So, even after that, I interned as a software engineer, like for the next summer holidays. And then I
Hmm.
realized, okay, this is not as fun as machine learning. So, I tried this, I tried a research internship in machine learning, and this is something that I like more. So, like, you can never go wrong with an internship or a hands-on project or a summer camp, like you said. So that's what I would suggest to everybody, like if they're starting out in machine learning.
Um, could you also, I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware of what exactly machine learning means. Could
Mhm.
you please give a brief introduction or like a summary of what exactly your job consists of on a daily basis?
So my job, because it is a startup, it's not very well defined, which means that I get to work in a lot of areas, which has been quite a learning curve for me. Machine learning in general, it means like, for instance, when you're on Amazon and you buy a product, it says that you might also like something. Like if you buy one brand of soap, it
Mm-hmm.
could suggest you shampoo of the same brand and say like customer who buy this or would also buy
Also,
this.
violence. Yes.
Yeah. So this is the easiest example that I use when I tell my father like what I do. So this is a part of machine learning. Based on the information that you have, can you try to predict something similar? And now
Yes.
machine learning has many different application, and this is like a very amateur definition, but this could get you started. Like if you want to know what machine learning is. For me personally, I have worked on image data, and right now I'm working on speech data. So for Japanese, there aren't many available models that could produce speech to text. So if somebody's saying something in Japanese, then you need a transcription of that. There are
Yes.
not a lot of models that correctly do that. So in my current project, that's what I've been trying to do, and there are many challenges with the language Japanese because it's very ambiguous. So there are a lot of characters, there are different kanji
Yes.
characters. So I've been working on that. That's my day-to-day job. Sorry if it sounds too complicated, but
No,
yeah,
no,
that's what I
no.
do.
That sounds very fascinating, actually. So living in Bangkok, I cannot understand Thai right now or read
Yeah.
Thai, and it's quite a complicated language, and something like that would help any international student or expat living in any country where you don't understand languages. It'll help them so much. So that's quite fascinating what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. My next question is data science and machine learning are rapidly evolving fields, right? What
Yeah.
emerging trends or like technology excites you the most, and how do you see them shaping our future? Considering AI, I think plays a big part even in your field.
Yeah. So interesting question. I think most people now have a vague idea what AI is, and they like kind of know it because of ChatGPT and generative AI. And that's probably one of the most fascinating fields out there right now. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants to work on how to include ChatGPT in their businesses. But for me personally, I've always drawn to the idea of getting insights. So for me, data analytics is more interesting than AI, for instance. So
Mm-hmm.
personally, I want to learn that if we have a set of data, then what insights can we get from it? And I think uh, that area itself is not only vast, but I think it's not going anywhere. Even 10 years down the line, you would have certain data that you need insights from, and then you would have these stakeholders and business people who do not understand it. So we would need an analyst to kind of somehow make sense of this data and present it in a way that other people understand. So for me, that's like quite interesting, something that I would like to personally delve in the future. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's it from my end.
So data analysis sounds quite also an interesting job, considering not all AIs are more reliable, I would say, in like understanding
Mhm.
data completely or interpreting it in several ways, like a human brain could, I would say. Um, but at the same time, don't you think AI is faster at generating responses for anything?
AI is definitely faster, but so people when they discuss about AI versus human, they sort of discuss it like or could AI replace humans? But I
Yes.
don't think that's true because AI has been trained on the data that we know. So
Hmm.
it cannot innovate. It can replicate, yes, it can carry out the redundant tasks. But at the end of the day, if you have some data, then you need a person to make sense of it and then use AI for their advantage to help delegate the task and then reduce the time spent on it. But that's why I think that I personally love AI because I get to work with it every day and it helps
Yes.
me with my productivity. It helps me with writing redundant code. But
Hmm.
I don't think that it would ever replace
Place.
a human. Yeah.
That I do agree with that statement quite a lot because I think working with AI can help all of us a great deal, but replacing humans with AI does not seem like a really smart idea. Like robots and AI are quite different from what I understand. And AI is
Yeah.
a great tool for like a support, like supporting member, basically, rather than doing all the
Yeah.
work by itself. Okay.
Definitely. Definitely. I
Um,
actually want to point out so I was watching one interview where these comedians were interviewing Javed Akhtar, okay? And
okay.
they were asking him that, now AI can write poems, AI can write songs, then like, do you think it would replace somebody like Javed Akhtar? And
Mhm.
he said that AI only knows what's there in
Yes.
on the internet, but it doesn't know how to create something that is not there. So it cannot innovate, which is a huge, huge part when it comes to art and research and so many things, right? Like we've been driven by innovation. So that's why he said that AI can't replace. And I kind of resonated with that so much because, like, I know like for instance, if you ask AI how many R's in strawberry, like I don't know if you've heard this, but it
No.
cannot answer it quickly. It cannot, it says that there are two R's, but there are three R's, something like that. And it'll give you reasons why it believes so. So like sometimes AI can be stupid and you don't have to believe everything. That's why we need a human to keep it in check.
Yes, I agree. And I think STEM is a field where you need innovation and it strives on innovation. So especially in any field in STEM, be it engineering, be it maths, be it science, philosophy even, I don't think AI can actually replace the jobs that humans do because of the
Yeah,
innovation that is required in these jobs. So I do agree with your statement completely.
definitely, definitely.
My next question is on your thesis on gender inequality through Japanese
Mhm.
household data, and it's a fascinating blend of STEM and social sciences. What were your most surprising findings, and how do you see that data contributing to solving social issues like gender equality?
Well, first of all, it was very new to me to study gender inequality from the eyes of an economist. So, like economists have very different idea of how the world works versus a data scientist. A data scientist can only make sense of the data, but economists can make policies and see how different variables interact. The most surprising fact for me was that fertility of a country and the growth of a country in terms of a GDP has a trade-off. So for me, I thought if we have more gender inequality, then it means that women are free to have more children and it will also promote growth. But somehow there's a negative trade-off, which is that if women tend to go to the workforce more, which
Mhm.
means they would have less time to stay at home, so they would have less number of children,
Yes.
which is not really great for a nation. So we want both the things. We want population to be at least constant, if not increasing, but we also want a country to grow. So how
Yes.
do we increase one thing and not reduce the other? So
Yes.
that was very fascinating to me and like kind of the main fundamental where I worked. And Sorry, what was the second question?
Um, I was just, it's quite interesting how do you think your data science is contributing? Like, how do you see this data science, like finding, like all your findings and how these can solve these social issues, like after your thesis?
So I think data science is a vast subject, right? So there are many parts of data science. I think what part could help in these social issues would be the statistical and the analytical part of it. So, for instance, when we're designing policies for social issues like
Yes,
gender equality, we need to gain insight from what the data says and then perhaps build some hypothesis based on it and test the hypothesis, see if it's true or not. So for that, we need a lot of mathematics, statistics, and analytics. So that's what I did in my master's as well. And I think these are the tools that could help us gain more information about what is happening, what does the data tell us, does it align with the economists economic theories that we have? If
yes.
not, then what could possibly be the reason? So I think in this way, like if you're going forward in social issues and see how data science can help with it, it could be used as a tool in that sense.
Just to make new assumptions, even, I would say. It's actually quite interesting. I never knew that you work that closely with economists or data science and economy actually have a big combination.
Yeah.
Because personally, I'm very interested in economics and finance as well. And in the future, I was like, I'm really like interested in doing something with engineering and finance. And I also recently discovered a field called financial engineering, which also has some, I would say, some combination with a little bit of data analysis, because it's like,
Yeah.
so I didn't know that engineering and like social sciences actually had a big what is it called? Like a Venn diagram, and they're
The
combining itself.
intersection, the
Yeah, they have a big
intersection.
intersection. That's the word I was looking for. And it's quite fascinating how did you expect to use economics so much in your data analysis when you were doing like researching or studying?
Not really. So I had never taken economics in my bachelor's or like even in
Okay.
school. Like we read about it a little bit,
Yes.
but not in so much detail.
Deep.
So, but I was always passionate about the topic of gender inequality. So I
Yes.
knew that I would want to do some research on why the problem exists or what are the some
Mm-hmm.
main factors contributing to it. So that's why when I was choosing my university and my professor, I wanted
Yes.
somebody who has an economics background but also has some information about how computer science works and how data science works. And even if they don't have that information, at least if they're willing to
Help. Yeah.
combine their economics knowledge with mine. So
Yes.
uh that's where I started. Yeah, and then eventually it led to being more theoretical, where I got to learn about the problem in detail, I would say.
That's quite interesting. Being on the topic of gender equality inequality, like you mentioned, it fascinates you a lot. As a woman working in STEM, what challenges have you faced, especially considering how male-dominated spaces like machine learning and data science can be? And how have you navigated through them?
So I think I have been very lucky and privileged because the teams that I worked in, they didn't make me feel different just because I was a woman or I came from a country like India. So I've been very lucky in that front. But one challenge I think that women face often, not just STEM, but in industry, is that there are not enough policies that are dedicated towards them. By that, I mean that when you go to a company, not many companies have this concept of menstrual leaves. And some people
Mm-hmm.
might argue that men and women should be equal. You're talking about equality, then how can you ask for leaves? But when we're talking about equality, we're not talking about physiological equality. Like men and women are different physiologically. And if
Yes.
you don't address that, that's just indifference. That's not equality, right?
Yes.
So I think that when it comes to work, there could be some days which are painful for some women, if not all, and we cannot generalize. But if there are some policies in place that help them, be it flexible work hours or be it some holidays or rest days, then I think that it could actually help a lot of women enter a competitive field like STEM. The second thing that I think in Japan, I have seen that the maternal leaves are very limited, and it is by the government, but not by the companies. And they're they're not 100% paid. And at the same time, when I was researching about why there is so much gender inequality in Japan, I realized
Yes.
that 50% of the women they leave workforce after they have their first child. And they leave it because one of the major reasons that they gave in the survey, it's there on the Japanese website. The main reason that they leave is because of inflexible work hours. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that is one indeed a great challenge for women if they're working in the industry, because if you don't provide flexible work hours to especially a mother, then the child rearing duties do interfere.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately or unfortunately, they do interfere with the work hours, and it becomes definitely a challenge. So I think these are the two things that I have personally seen. But in terms of teams and I've been very privileged to work with great people who come from different backgrounds, so they
Yes.
understand that you bring value to the table irrespective of your gender. So yeah, I've been
That
very
is
lucky with
great.
that. Yeah.
That is so nice to hear. I agree with that one point you said about flexible time hours. It's quite shocking to me that even countries such as Japan are facing issues considering how advanced they are in technology and like they are one of the leading, I would say, countries that have a great amount of females in workforces. Because I like being in India, I've always seen there's been like less females going into fields such as engineering,
Hmm.
rather than like medicine or even science. But even hearing about like how there are little females even in Japan that are going towards these fields, and I would say family is important for a lot of people, and a lot of people, females especially, prioritize family over work. Do you think that's an issue that companies should address? Like you mentioned, the working times.
I think definitely, if people are choosing to have children, then I don't think it should restrict them from contributing to a company, right? So I don't want to leave my job and have kids. That's not the only part I want to play. I want to be,
Yes.
if I ever decide to have a kid, then I want to be a mother. But at some point, I want to return to the workforce and contribute there as well. So I think companies should understand that there is indeed a difference in men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So a child, because women go through, if they do decide to have the child, then they have to go through a longer process, and their body takes a lot of time to recover. So
Certainly.
you need to take that factor in consideration when you're designing policies. I would say even for men, the concept of paternal leaves, it's very
Yes.
new. And
Okay.
I realized that in Japan, like it's not there at all. Like there are some companies which are international, which might offer, but if you're going to a traditional Japanese company, then they don't have paternal leaves, which
Mm-hmm.
was quite like shocking, because men also want to take care of their children. They also want to be there. So when I
Mm-hmm.
talk about feminism and gender inequality, it's not just women. It's also for
For
like
men.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I think when you're designing policies, you should take these factors into consideration.
That I agree. That is, I also was just I did not know about paternity leaves existing until I was in school actually, and my teachers are getting paternity leaves when they have like children. So it was quite interesting because even in India, I wasn't familiar with this concept of paternity leave
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
anywhere. I'd never heard of it. But once I started going to school and one of my teachers was off from school, he was like, "Oh, I was on paternity leave," and it's quite. I'm so glad that some like places have that because, like you said, gender equality isn't just about females, but it's also about males at some points. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
My next question to you is, what advice would you give to a woman entering fields such as machine learning or data science or something similar to technical domains, especially in navigating workplace culture and building up their confidence?
I think I was reading this somewhere that a woman is less likely to apply for a job if she does not fulfill all the criteria versus a man. So even if they fulfill like 70% of the criteria, a man would likely apply to the job and a woman would not. And when I
Mm-hmm.
read it, it kind of resonated with me because I do that all the time. So I used to do
Okay.
it when I was job hunting, and I realized that it's the imposter syndrome. It's you feeling like you are not enough or what you've done is not significant enough. So that's the advice I would like to give other people out there, especially I feel like STEM, which is very competitive. Like,
Yes.
while imposter syndrome is important to keep you humble, but don't let it stop you from being successful. Like, what's the worst that could happen if you apply to the job? You won't get it. You
Certainly.
won't get it anyway if you don't apply in the first place, right? So, yeah, that's the advice I would like to give to people out there.
That's a really good advice. I would say you should take, like, basically in summary, you're saying take all the opportunities you get, regardless of the outcome. So, because
Yeah,
you never know what's gonna happen. I think as a student right now, like being in my teenage years, I stopped myself from going like applying to like school, like some programs or something, just out of this fear that I'm gonna get rejected out of it. So I don't want
yeah,
to go through that pain. But there's this chance that I get in and that can turn into this amazing thing for me that might tell me somewhere, or I might find my new passion. So that is so true. What you said. Uh, I do resonate with it quite a lot too. I think I stopped myself and I've seen my friends be more like fearful, especially like my girlfriends, like trying to pause, like, oh, I'm not gonna get this like position, even if it's like
yeah.
applying for a school role, like, president of like a club or joining a new club just out of like, oh, I don't have any friends there, or like there's no other girl. So that is so true.
Definitely. I think a lot of us do that, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. My next question is, your journey has been shaped by both academic research and industrial experience. What do you think is a key to bridging the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical applications in fields like data science?
Interesting question. Uh, I think the key is to make it open source. So, like by open source, I mean like open to public knowledge and consumption. So,
Okay.
I have learned most things by going on the internet and searching for the projects on GitHub. So, if you don't know what GitHub is, then GitHub is like a place where people put out their projects and their code, and
Okay.
you could like download their project, run it, improve on it, see which parts you like, which parts you don't like. So even in industry, that's what we use. And when we're researching, like it might be difficult to for you to read the entire research paper, understand and implement it. But if there are certain parts, like I understand that you cannot make it open source 100% of the times, but if you could do it for some things, that it would help other people to test your code and see how good it works, because nothing compares to when you actually try the project that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me personally, I love open source stuff, and I try to contribute to open source stuff as much as possible. So whatever projects that I've done in university and my college, I have put out the code on the internet, and then randomly people would email me about the queries regarding the project. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a great learning curve. Like, you did your research, you put it on the internet, and then somebody's able to learn from it. So that's one key thing that I think would bridge the gap between the theoretical knowledge and the
And
industrial
pra
one.
that is quite interesting to hearing, and especially this idea of like collaborating work. I really resonate with that. I love working and working with other people because I feel like it, like you said, having access and the ability of the internet right now is quite amazing. And there's so much already on the internet. Like this idea
Yeah.
of originality is great, but there's already so many new ideas where you can expand that into creating something bigger and greater whilst helping other people is quite interesting and fascinating to me as well. And I really like this. So I've done some coding in school, but I do realize that is not one of the things that I'm really enthusiastic about right now. And it's quite challenging, especially
Yeah.
learning all of these syntax errors. And I was like, that is not something I'm very keen on doing in the future. But I think I used to ask a lot of my friends for help, and like having some support is quite interesting, and learning from one another is the best way you can help adapt and develop your skill, as well as teaching someone, like asking, like if someone asks a question that you didn't even think about, you get to learn from that as well.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
the open learning is quite interesting. Um, final, finally, I have one last message for you. For someone new to machine learning or data analytics, what resources or projects would you recommend them to get started? Like you mentioned, open source, but is there any other advice, especially females, that you would like to give?
I think to anybody who's planning to learn data science and machine learning, the first step would be, for me personally, what worked is to take a structured course, because it gives you
Okay.
all the fundamentals that you need to learn. So, like, there are libraries that you can use, or AI that could write the code for you, but then you wouldn't understand what goes in the back end. So, first, like, go through some fundamental courses. The one that I did is from Andrew Ng. It's on Coursera. There's a 3 course specialization, and it's in Python. So that one I completed. I think it's really nice for somebody to who's getting started. Coursera offers a financial aid. So for students especially, I think it could be useful. But if you're not into like structured courses, then on YouTube, one of the YouTubers is called StatQuest. The guy, he creates like short videos, and there's a whole playlist on machine learning, about 100 videos in less than like 15 minutes each. And they have such vast variety of topics, and the guy is so funny. Like, I find him very funny, and he has these illustrative slides which he uses to teach about the topics. I think it could be really useful. After learning the basics, if you want to go into the projects, then there are websites called such as Kaggle. Kaggle has open
Yes.
source data sets, and people also put their code on it. So if you're ever stuck, you can go through their code. But it has different categories as well. I was personally interested in gender inequality and poverty alleviation. So
Yes.
those are the data sets I explored. Other than that, I think do internships after you've learned a bit, or do some hands-on projects, or do a summer
Mhm.
camp. I think it could be really fun to develop your knowledge that way.
I agree. I think that's amazing and great advice. Thank you so much. Um, this this episode has helped me quite a lot, and it's also given me some more advice on resources and places where I can explore my other passions and find something I don't like, or maybe I do
Yeah.
like, to see what I want to do in the future. And I think everyone who's listening to this has helped them a lot, and given a clarification and an idea of what you do and all this amazing work and the different fields that you can combine in STEM that I didn't even know was possible. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey with us. Um,
So
it's
much,
been a
Ashika.
pleasure to have you in Beyond the Equation, and thank you.
I'm happy
Yeah,
to be a part of it.
thank you. Take care.